Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and this is a breakdown of The Boys Season 4, Episode 6. This is by far my favorite episode of the season because we get these little freaks and the biggest reveal so far for the season, to which our writer Gina was correct on theorizing, and she needs to let you guys all know. She told me to tell you. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes launching your own website a breeze. There's lots of hidden details in this episode that connect to Gen V Season 2, along with the ideas to how Kessler saved Butcher from Ezekiel as the virus worm, so let's just get into it. And a quick reminder to check out nerdride.shop, where you can always find the latest and greatest in New Rockstars merch. Gear up for the biggest movie of the summer. It's coming up. It's Deadpool and Wolverine. Show some love for the Force, for our Star Wars inspired merch. I love that merch so much. It's so fun. I'm not wearing it today, but I wish I was. I dirtied up my shirt wearing it too much. Grabbing some merch from nerdride.shop is the greatest way to support the channel and all the work we do, breaking down all these properties for you each and every week. So go over there, go get it, go get a little crop top, and then come back and watch this breakdown. This episode is titled Dirty Business, which covers issue number 9 of the comics that follows Butcher and Hughie breaking into Tek Knight's home in almost the exact same manner as this episode. They head to the library, pick up a book that leads to his weird lair. We open the episode with Samir waking up. After the last episode, it's revealed Butcher kidnapped him and cut off his leg. The juxtaposition here of the scene from Kessler and Butcher waking him up, and then in season 1 where Butcher was waking up translucent, feels just so similar, not only in tone and the lighting, but their jaunty little good morning attitudes.
Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey, motherfucker.
Where am I?
Oi, morning, sunshine.
By now, you've watched the episode where the biggest twist is revealed. Kessler's not really there. Another figment of our boy's imagination. Now that we know this, the signs were always there, like right here. Notice how Kessler says, wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey, but Samir only reacts and wakes up when Butcher slaps him in the face. Samir never interacts directly with Kessler, even looks at or reacts to his presence. We don't really know where the new location is, but I assume this is all an abandoned Vought Farms location. You can see the banner in the background that says Vought Fresh Farms, which is the Vought food company. They make milk, of course, and they're also shooting at one of the locations in season 2 of Gen V. Vought Fresh Farms is not a good food manufacturing company. Later, the Deep tells the new Black Noir that a couple years ago, old Black Noir cleared out an entire Indonesian fishing village because Vought Fresh Farms was extending their palm oil plantation. They're basically like the Nestle Corporation or Tyson Foods. If Stan Edgar's farm was home to some of the animals for Vought Fresh Farms, or Vought Fresh Farms worked out of this area, I wonder if the other animals that were infected by the virus later were killed and still processed, now delivering this like tainted meat like mad cow disease. This could be a way that the virus gets out more, or that more Compound V gets out to the public and affects season 2 of Gen V. Samir refers to Victoria here as Vicky, and I think it's just interesting to note he doesn't call her by her actual name, Nadia, after she gave that sweet motivational speech to Starlight last episode about forgetting who Annie is anymore. This just goes to show how long she's been under the guise of Victoria, and even with the love of her life, she prefers the latter. Kessler says this:
Could just send you back to them in a bucket. You don't do whatever the we say.
Which reminded me again of Translucent. They put his exploded body into trash bags and then into a zinc box because Homelander couldn't see through zinc and threw him into the water. However, the Deep's little sea friend found it later. In that box, it was spray painted "coming for you." So Butcher indeed sent his remains back to Vought like a message. So this isn't his first rodeo, Samir. Then we're on the Made in Manhattan walking tour. Hughie's dad was big into walking tours. Since last episode, he wanted to do the Dan Brown Da Vinci Code one, which is why his last words were Tom Hanks. His ashes are in a Cafe Bustelo espresso ground coffee can. It's sweet that his walking tour is where they're like scattering his dad's ashes, even though it's gross and I'm pretty sure illegal. It's like how people who dump their ashes at Disneyland. If my ashes were dumped anywhere, it would be like the Grand Canyon, or maybe a cheese grater at Olive Garden. As you can see by the decorative plants and their heavy jackets, it's close to Christmas if the rehearsal for Vought on Ice wasn't enough evidence already. On the tour, you can see a taxi cab with an ad for Black added on the top, part of the Vought cinematic universe phases starring Black Noir, Sister Sage, and A-Train. We also see another ad for Vought Planet, which we saw in episode 1. On this gentle tour dumping Hughie Sr.'s ashes, a man screams at Starlight about her abortion. He's wearing a Keep America Safe red hat, the satirical version of Trump supporters' red Make America Great Again hats. We also saw Rufus from Gen V sporting one of these hats during the town hall with Victoria Neuman in episode 7. His shirt, I assume, says Supe Lives Matter. You can only see a little bit of the lettering, but it equals someone's lives matter, and I'm pretty sure it's Supe's. We're now at Vernon Correctional Facility, a division of Vernon Corp LLC, which we later find out is Tek Knight's family's private prison. Afterwards, we learn Cameron Coleman is on sabbatical, and Firecracker is to step in as interim VNN news anchor. They're playing under the guise that Cameron is out, but we later learn he's dead. The beatdown we saw last episode led to his death, and I wonder what they told his family, because you know they're lying. I'm sure it was intentional on the writer's part, but Firecracker saying the word sabbatical, which is the Hebrew word for rest, and then the Jewish space lasers is irony I couldn't even write. This is parodying when that real life idiot Marjorie Taylor Greene blamed wildfires on secret Jewish space lasers. I like that it's the Star of David that makes up the lasers in space. Also, I'm actually kind of impressed that Firecracker even knows what a shul is, basically a Yiddish word for house of worship or a synagogue. Her last words before signing off, she speaks on Jerry Brown, who was like the youngest elected governor of California, the RAND Corporation, which is a nonprofit global policy think tank, research and analysis institute, and Manischewitz, which is a brand of kosher products. Mother's Milk is the only one trying to better himself, and good for him. He dealt with his OCD and now he's trying to stay calm and mindful. Now I'm worried he's probably just gonna die at the end of the show. His meditation app has the New York skyline, which I also feel is the opposite of calm. Why would they do that on his app? A-Train ran to Toronto so he could call Mother's Milk and tell him they killed Cameron Coleman, believing he was the leak. And what's funny about this entire scene is that they do most of their shooting in Toronto. So they just put him under the CN Tower like easy peasy. So this is our Tek Knight episode, and Mother's Milk reveals he's having a Federalist party because a rich man who owns private prisons, yeah, he'd throw a conservative party. Mother's Milk reveals the secret way into the party, and that's using Webweaver. And this is his Federal Bureau of Superhuman Affairs rap sheet. This is where Victoria Neuman and Hughie used to work, and we see his real name is Patrick Whitehall. Webweaver is of course a parody of Spider-Man and shares the same name as Marvel's Webweaver, who was an openly gay Spider-Man, but it came after Webweaver from The Boys. Webweaver is also played by Dan Musso, and as I assumed, our boy hasn't been able to get himself clean. He's been doing work for Butcher and Mother's Milk in exchange for information on soups like Firecracker Scandal. He also assisted in getting intel in the comics for Mallory and Butcher, so this isn't far from his comic line. As you can see, Webweaver's home is riddled with webs, and I assume he either got high and just shot them everywhere, or he's nesting, or he's just farting, because we see a scene where he farts out a web. I can't show it here. Unlike our new Spidey, but like Tobey Maguire's Spidey, his webbings is organic. This also falls under the same joke from the Multiverse of Madness when America Chavez asked if Spider-Man shot webs out of his butt. For this next part, I can't show you any of this, so I'll describe it here. His Spidey butthole has little spinnerets. Spiders use them to draw the spider silk out of their abdomens. Cute. Not only does Webweaver have a bong, but many different types of lube. I think this one is Mr. Marathon's brand lube. It has the same branding as the Mr. Marathon catering van that they did surveillance in episode 1. Vought burger and leftover food, a giant finished box of pizza, 2 remotes, and an anal plug. Pop off. I also like the lone sock. We know why that's there. I love that Hughie knows Mother Milk so well that he carries around Purell for him and his OCD. Also, I'm not trying to be this person. It's not as bad as what happened to him at Herogasm, though a wet web squirt sounds pretty horrible. Hughie's is also wearing a B-52 shirt, and Mother's Milk is wearing a Notorious B.I.G. shirt. I never call him that. I always call him Biggie Smalls. He's wearing a Biggie Smalls shirt. Mother Milk says this.
With as much Rohypnol as I shot up his ass, at least 48 hours.
And this is a drug used to treat insomnia that is often used as a date drug. We're now at Tek Knight's estate, and I like their budget this year on portraits for all the soups. Tek Knight has classic rich men stuff like taxidermied animals. The Tek Knight portrait is a parody of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago portrait, which is insane to do. We get a cropped Anthony Von Dyck's portrait of the nobleman and his son, and a portrait of Nathan Bedford Forrest, the Confederate soldier and Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan from 1867 to 1869. He was the first Grand Wizard. No, I would not go into this house. I spent a lot of time looking into a lot of these portraits, and I think some are commissioned art pieces for the show because they're all slightly off of what normally the paintings would look like. I also asked our resident art nerd Berg, and he asked his mom, and she also agreed. We meet Senator Calhoun, who was that guy in season 1 of The Boys who slept with Doppelganger and was blackmailed with photos of it by Madeline Stillwell. He's now the Speaker of the House, and when he says this little part,
might have taken 18 rounds of voting, but we got there, didn't we?
This could be commentary on how Republicans keep ousting their speakers for dumb Marjorie Taylor Greene reasons and can never agree on one, often taking 5 rounds of voting to choose. Or it could be a more direct analogy to how it took 15 rounds of votes for Kevin McCarthy to be elected Speaker of the House. Throughout most of history of the House of Representatives, it has taken 1 vote to elect a speaker. Not since 1860, in the buildup to the American Civil War, had the lower chamber of Congress voted this many times to pick a speaker. And I feel like that dog and a house on fire meme, the like, this is fine. Tek Knight saunters to Homelander and says,
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
A poem by Walt Whitman about the death of Abraham Lincoln, also made famous by the film Dead Poets Society, which is what I know it from. Tek Knight is clearly the Batman of this world, so him comparing himself to Homelander and Homelander being like, are you stupid? Is like a quick answer to all those debates about whether Batman or Superman would win in a fight, when in actuality, Superman would come in, laser him in half the second he showed up, and it'd be no contest. And of course, Sage and A-Train are the only black people in this right-wing Confederacy-loving party. We learned through Tek Knight's ridiculously racist remarks to A-Train that the whole truth got picked up for season 2 by Vought Plus. Yippee! He also said his money is 11 generations long and he's descendants of the Vernon family, the name of which should sound familiar because it's the prison where Frenchie is at. They own most of the private prisons in the USA. They started as slave catchers, which probably makes sense as to why he has a KKK leader portrait in his house. Private prisons are the equivalent of modern day slavery. Also a fun little reminder that the modern police institutions started as slave catchers. So the more you know. I also love that Batman owns prisons, an obvious commentary on the people who are like, Bruce Wayne could fix Gotham much better if he used those billions to invest in social programs and education instead of just locking up petty criminals. After his long speech about his great-great-granddaddy being able to catch A-Train, he responds with,
I guess we'll never know.
which probably is not the Kanye West Grammy line.
I guess we'll never know.
Had to do it on him. So Hughie arrives as Webweaver. The fact that this costume has his little spider fangs on it has me cackling. Also, the score has the heroic fanfare that sadly peters out when he is fully revealed. Kimiko says he looks like a Times Square Elmo, and the girls that get it, and the girls that don't simply never will. We learned Tek Knight has super smell, vision, touch, and taste. We knew this already since his powers in Gen V demonstrated different abilities and increased deduction. Tek Knight's butler Elijah is played by Tyrone Benskin. This man has a history of acting, but he's also elected member of parliament in Montreal, Quebec in the 2011 Canadian federal election and served as MP until 2015. And the irony of this man just playing a black butler for a billionaire racist is insane to me. And clearly he's a parody of Alfred for Batman. We can see Hughie doesn't have the spider butt teeth where Webweaver's would go, so this is just a bare giveaway that that's not Webweaver. Tek Knight wants Webweaver to be his new sidekick, and in the comics, Tek Knight's sidekick was Ladio, a parody of Robin or Nightwing. The original Ladio turned into Swing Wing when he got too old and he was replaced by a younger Ladio. However, the man in the red gimp suit, the last sidekick, is credited as Ladio, and you hear Tek Knight call out to it very quick at the end.
Ladio, get help, boy!
Tek Knight runs his fingers around the rim of his glass because, you know, it's a hole. Tek Knight mentions, that's why I went to the Safdies to direct. The Safdie brothers directed Uncut Gems, and Benny was also the gross dude in The Curse. Hughie's also comments on the orchid paintings in the stairway looking like little buttholes. And if you hadn't noticed, almost every single plant in this man's house is an orchid. If you do business online, then you need a website and it's gotta look good. Luckily, getting a great looking website is easier than ever thanks to Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that provides you with everything you need to do whatever you need with your website. For instance, Squarespace makes it easy to sell merch. You can design your products, then save time and money by letting Squarespace handle production, inventory, and shipping. And if you're selling any other kind of physical goods, digital goods, or even a service, Squarespace makes it easy to build your storefront and grow your business. Squarespace has a massive asset library with everything you could possibly need, whether you're building your first website or polishing up one you've already got. Squarespace makes it super easy to customize your look, update content, add features, and make your website work exactly the way you want it to. Just head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/newrockstars to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And you have no idea how bad my search history looks during this episode. I was typing Waterloo, butt plug, orchid ass, like my FBI agent is in a coma now. We're now in his little library. He has the original Beecher Stowe Uncle Tom's Cabin, another slave-based item he owns, and a used version of this book can go for $32,000. This is a near fine first edition. The book that gets you into the Tek Cave is the Marquis de Sade, the 120 Days of Sodom and Other Writings, because of course, that's the book. From Wikipedia, the book describes the activities of 4 wealthy libertine Frenchmen who spend 4 months seeking the ultimate sexual gratification through orgies, sealing themselves in an inaccessible castle in the heart of the Black Forest. A lot of rough sex things in that book. And we're led to, of course, a kinky sex dungeon, and I can't show you anything in this room without YouTube getting pissed at me, so unfortunately, I can only describe the factual parts. We got masks, dildos, bondage chairs, strap-ons, so much lube. Honestly, a person would say too much lube. A urinal that leads your piss to a mask to drink it, because Tek Knight is that filthy. And I'm not trying to yuck y'all's yum, but seek help. Don't be a toilet. And poor Elijah just out there in the back, hosing down the floors, but my man will get his payback, and I'm so proud of him. Elijah uses the term master when referring to him as Master Knight. We highlight just like how weird that is that Alfred also called Batman Master Wayne, even though, like Elijah, he was the sole parental figure from the age of like 10 to these people. Tek Knight yells at Elijah about not cleaning the Santorum off the gibbet cage. Santorum is a word meaning a mix of like poop and lube from playing in the butt. It was named this because of the douche nozzle that's Rick Santorum. So the fact that Tek uses the word here while while there are a bunch of racist right-wing nutbags above him is definitely on purpose. Also, the gibbet cage is that human-looking cage over there. Finally, actor Nathan Mitchell, who has been portraying Black Noir since the show began, reveals his face. We speculated that this was the voice we heard this season. The actor who portrayed the unmasked Black Noir last season was Fritzy Clemons Destin. Also, the Deep and Black Noir getting left out of the little party at Tek Knight's place is hilarious to me. It's so funny and sad that the new Black Noir just can't understand the role of old Black Noir. He mentions all he had in his closet was a bunch of Buster Beaver drawings, and again, a reminder that those were his friends he imagined. In this wild conversation between the Deep and Black Noir, we learn that the Deep is becoming a maniac, learning how much power is behind scaring people and killing them, something I've argued he would go further with this entire season. Mother Milk mentions they have halothane to knock out the Supes. This is what Annie will later inject into Firecracker to knock her out. They tried halothane last season on Soldier Boy, but he just huffed it like it was a party drug. Back with Butcher, we see a sign for Black Noir, unions can't, we can, a hilarious anti-union propaganda from Bot. Here you see a better shot of the Crimson Countess poster about wasting time, and damn, that had this factory really slaving away. Speaker Calhoun mentions this horrible tidbit.
Actually, we know if the rape is legitimate, the woman's body has a way to reject that pregnancy.
This is actually an awful scientifically false thing that former US rep from Missouri Todd Aiken once said, and he wasn't reelected. Victoria then mentions this.
I just had abortion mansplained to me by a guy who refuses to be alone with any woman who isn't his wife.
This is a reference to a quote VP Mike Pence gave The Hill in 2002, where he said he never eats alone with a woman other than his wife, and that he won't attend events featuring alcohol without her by his side. This has also been attributed to the Billy Graham rule, which is, according to Wikipedia, a code of conduct among male evangelical Protestant leaders in which they avoid spending time alone with women to whom they are not married. And look, a croquembouche, not really a missable detail, but Brandon wants you to know he loves croquembouche. You'd also like to add this part right here. Tek Knight has a thing for holes, and the croquembouche is made up of pastry puffs, which resemble donut holes, so maybe it is a missed detail.
I think it is a whole thing.
Do you hear him? That's Brandon. This is Brandon's 2 cents. Sage mentions her grandmother was an ex-Black Panther, which is important to know and further confuses me on what her plan really is. Her grandmother made an impression on her, so she's digging through all these horrible racist affairs to get where exactly. She also references Votland lines, which are too long anyways, and we saw Votland during Crimson Countess's show.
You want to wait 3 hours for a 3 minutes ride? It is a monument to a monster.
Sage also said she could save the world, but humans don't deserve it. And this is why I just love this character so much. It's such a fun character to play with. Sage also goes on to say one hand in their pockets while the other slits their throats. A nice rewording of the lyrics to Alanis Morissette's 1995 hit, Hand in My Pocket. I can't show you this, but Tek Knight has Hughie fart on a cake. And again, I'm sorry, YouTube will get mad at me. Cake farts are a real thing. Go look it up. Tell them Jessica sent you. Also, it's a German chocolate cake, which Tek Knight claims is for the texture against the bare cheeks, but it's also probably because he thinks it's a Nazi's favorite cake or something. And not saying, you know, that all Germans are Nazis, but more that Tek Knight is a fascist and a racist idiot. Again, at this moment, I can't show you what happens following this, but to be fair, it's hard to watch anyway. But I can say the sweet saxophone from Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street kicks in.
We are just getting started.
This song pops up all over the place and is a song in GTA 5 on Los Santos Rock Radio. Also, he ends this by giving Hughie a sandpaper to clean himself up with, which is insane and great at the same time. We see a better old ad on the wall for Vought Fresh Farms, potted meat, ready to eat. Every mother Vought to know, nothing but the best for my family, and Butcher is just really taking that all in. The tanks in this warehouse have the Vought American logo on them, and this is the logo that we saw at the beginning of the sizzle reel at V52 Expo. A poster above Butcher featuring Soldier Boy reads, "Safety is everyone's mission," which we know is a lie. Back in the dungeon, Ashley is here and says maybe the filthiest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, which I will never repeat and I can't talk about on this because again, YouTube.
You want that?
Yes?
The song playing now is Sailing by Christopher Cross and is one of the most iconic yacht rock songs. How dare they play that during this moment? Firecracker gets bullied by Sage in front of Homelander and Neuman. Bullying, as we know, doesn't mix with Firecracker's attitude and lengthy grudges, so she betters herself in the mirror. And this is another Supe just staring in the mirror moment. This is also where it's important to note Annie's powers are still not working. The song playing now in this chaotic dungeon is You Can Do Magic by America, and now this soundtrack officially slaps. This is Brandon love.
Sorry, I made you say that, Jessica.
Hughie mentions, "You were my favorite hero as a kid. I don't think we can show this scene, so I can just yell it to you." And it's true. We heard the story from Hughie Sr. last week.
I've got to take Hughie to the Vought Company store. He's saving up for a Tek Knight doll.
Upstairs, Sage, after antagonizing Mother's Milk by keeping tabs on him and his family, gets shot in the head, which forces him to collapse into what we assume is a heart attack, later revealed to be a panic attack. Kimiko uses all these books to tell A-Train what to do since she dropped her phone outside of Tek Knight's house. She uses Agatha Christie's Easy to Kill, her murder mystery book, and for the sake of his daughter. The author of this book is the production designer, Adrian Turner, who I assume created the props for most of these books. We're back with new tunes, and the song is The Things We Do for Love by 10cc. A-Train runs Mother Milk to the hospital, and a little boy looks at him so happily, and A-Train's cold, small heart definitely grew 2 sizes that night, and I'm so proud of him. Back at the estate, I love that now Sage is quasi-lobotomized again. Maybe the best sentence I've ever seen in the show.
I could really go for a Crunchwrap Supreme and a Sibian.
My girl said she could go for a Crunchwrap Supreme and a Sibian. That's that thing you get on and ride to get off. And girl, me too. A Crunchwrap Supreme and a Sibian? That's insane. I love her too much. Now with Sage out, Homelander decides to speak on her behalf, and he's so used to doing this bullshit speech to regular citizens, not money-grubbing politicians, he's clearly not smart enough for any of this. The oil and gas billionaire and hedge fund CEO starts grilling Homelander until Neuman steps in. She mentions rimming AOC, which we know she's referring to our AOC, the Democrat and activist. Victoria says this:
There are no nations. There's Apple, Exxon, and Berkshire Hathaway.
People are probably familiar with Apple and Exxon, but BH is an American multinational conglomerate holding company founded in 1839 and currently has Warren Buffett as CEO. They have stock holdings in a ton of companies, including Apple, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, American Express, Chevron, and Kraft Heinz, just to name a few. Back with Tek Knight and his new captors, the song playing is Rosanna by Toto. Hughie starts hurting Tek Knight by donating all his money, and this is pure torture for the man. First to Elizabeth Warren, our US Democratic senator from Massachusetts, who also ran for president in 2020. The Innocence Project, a 501 nonprofit legal organization that is committed to exonerating individuals who have been wrongly convicted through the use of DNA testing and working to reform the criminal justice system to prevent future injustice. And of course, Black Lives Matter. Tek Knight refers to BLM as those people because he's that kind of racist. This is when we learn that they want to use Tek Knight's prisons for people who fight their new views. Those who disobey go straight to jail.
Right to jail, right away.
Everyone, especially Elijah, says hell no.
We'll make it look like an accident. You always admired David Carradine.
David Carradine passed away after an unfortunate accident involving autoerotic asphyxiation. And also, there's just no better satisfaction than watching the black butler strangle his racist superior with a whip. How poetic. And of course, the safe word was Zendaya, and the way he delivered that line was so wild.
Zendaya. The safe word. It was Zendaya.
We learned that Mother's Milk suffered a panic attack, not a heart attack, but honestly, that should tell us all enough about this man's stress levels and how he needs to calm down. Back at Frenchie's prison, we see a Homelander poster that says, remember, if you've done nothing wrong, then you've got nothing to hide. So we learn here that Cameron Coleman wasn't the leak, and Tek Knight is dead, and all this new information is given by Firecracker, who's blaming Sage for all the misinformation because she bullied her. Then we get the scene. This is the payoff for Frenchie fighting the metal clopramide in episode 4. The acting from Anthony Starr when that breast milk touched his lips was disgusting. It was Emmy-worthy, but I didn't like it. Though Firecracker mentions the medication she takes to be able to lactate enlarges the heart a little bit, I think it's safe to assume this is what will eventually kill her if Starlight doesn't. So now they're listening to the bug where Victoria laid it all out, and they know about the labor camps, so everything will be as Kessler said to Butcher in episode 1.
We need someone like you, Billy, before the Supes start rounding us up and dumping us off in camps.
Interestingly though, Kessler isn't real, so Butcher knew what Homelander and the other Supes were about to do anyways. It's kind of confusing, and I feel like we'll eventually get this answered. Joe Kessler says this:
A global pandemic.
Some consider this phrase redundant, since the word pandemic implies global occurrence of an infectious disease. So this is when we learn that Kessler died back in the war, and he said he killed Ezekiel for him, which now makes me believe his V-worm performs like a failsafe when close to death and retaliates. So that V-worm is Kessler. He ends saying daddy's home, and this is another Kripke Easter egg.
Daddy's home.
It was said a bunch of times in Supernatural.
Daddy's home.
And Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the daddy on Supernatural. Whenever he'd reappear, the fans would be like, oh my God, daddy's home. The fans is me and Gina knows too much about Supernatural. And then it closes, and that's my breakdown for episode 6 of The Boys. Check in next week for episode 7, and check out the break room where they'll be covering The Boys after show over there. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Lulu_Clemons. Follow New Rockstars and subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.